Welcome to Talkin Science, where we dive into the stories making headlines in the world of science and space. I'm Matt Miller. Dr. Brad Tucker is here. Brad, happy Tuesday.
How's it going?
Really good, my friend. Let's get the headlines in the 33rd week of 2021. Russian space junk likely caused the loss of a Chinese satellite. 15 years on since the textbooks were changed, why does debate still stalk Pluto? And China's Martian rover completes its primary mission.
This is Trekzone's Talkin Science. And you can get exclusive behind-the-scenes info and first-play access to all Trekzone podcasts by becoming a member today. Click join on every Trekzone video on YouTube. Go to the trek.zone/support or scan the QR code on screen throughout the show. Now, it's back to you, Matt.
Well, thank you very much, Ross. And a quick mention of our socials too. Trekzone's on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and your favourite podcast feed. Find us, like, follow, and subscribe. Leave comments and ratings, and that'll help us convince the algorithm we're worth it. Brad, too, on social media, at BTucker22 on Twitter, Dr. Brad Tucker on Facebook. Brad, a quick one. NASA used their communication network, including Tidbinbilla, last week to beam a message from Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry into deep space. That marks what would have been his 100th birthday. To me, that's a good use case if I've ever heard one.
Look, yeah, I mean, obviously a nod to his importance of his role in science fiction and popularization of science and space and inspiration even. And as you said, a good use of some valuable instruments.
Absolutely. Well, let us get into the headlines of the week. The federal government has issued a commercial rocket launch permit for Southern Launch. They're teaming up with Taiwanese company TaiSpace to launch from Whalers Way in the months ahead.
Yeah, look, we've talked quite a bit about their growing facility and plans out there. And this is just another step in that with this, a two-stage rocket that would do the suborbital flight. So clearly they have some big plans. And they want to get the ground going. And this just shows why they wanted to build this. A lot of people do want access to that southern pole site for satellites. So it's not surprising that they've already had customers jumping at it.
Absolutely. We love Southern Launch here at Trekzone. Well, in Victoria, the Southern Hemisphere's first dark matter underground physics lab is well into construction, gearing up to welcome scientists by Christmas, Brad.
Yeah, so, this facility installed in this old gold mine has really been set up to detect dark matter and some related experiments, similar to these experiments going on in the Northern Hemisphere, and has been a big part of a group of astronomers and physicists trying to build this facility to directly see and detect dark matter particles as they travel through the crust. So it's great to see this instrument and this facility almost coming online. As you said, it could be a great Christmas gift for everyone.
Absolutely. For 5 months on from the loss of a Chinese satellite, Brad, we now have the likely cause, a piece of Russian space junk.
Yeah, this has been something that they've been trying to figure out for quite a while. So when this satellite was launched, it was clear that it went near a old Russian rocket booster. However, trying to pinpoint exactly what happened to it, what may have happened to it after they lost cause and communications with it was critical. Now some sleuthing by the one Jonathan McDowell has shown that, yes, with confirmation from Space Force data, multiple pieces of debris now have been picked up from that satellite as the Russian rocket booster passed over it. So clearly now these two objects have been cataloged into being multiple objects, showing that, yes, indeed, they two did collide back in March.
Absolutely. Jonathan, a contributor to Trekzone as well, his insight is absolutely incredible in the breadth and depth of what he knows. Well, the 18th Space Control Squadron posted a tweet back in March confirming the loss of the satellite, as you talked about there, with the cause unknown. A few theories were flying around, including China shooting it down, as they did with another satellite in 2007, or even that it just lost control. But this reasoning is quite alarming, but not unexpected, Brad.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is definitely alarming, but it is something that was critical to figuring out what's going on. And now marks really the second major collision between two things in space. Obviously, back in 2009, we saw the crash between another Russian piece of debris, its Cosmos satellite, and a Iridium satellite phone satellite, which crashed again, producing multiple pieces of debris. And, it really just goes to show, we keep talking about the space junk problem. It isn't something that we're kind of making up or overstating. We are starting to see these collisions between large objects occurring in space, and a reminder of just what we need to do to limit the potential pollution and damage to the space environment.
Yeah, absolutely. As you're alluding to there, with what's happening in low Earth orbit, this incident really does highlight those dangers. And we essentially now have a junkyard up there that may make it impossible to break through in the years ahead. What should we be doing right now as a planet, Brad?
Yeah, look, that's a good point, because this rocket booster was from 1996, so it wasn't, sent up there yesterday. There were bits of debris back from the 50s and 60s that is still hanging around in space. This is something that we need to deal with. This is something that we need to clean up. This is something that we have to manage. And it's not just one solution. There has to be a multi-pronged attack between preventing more debris, so that is better management of facilities up there, plans for how to deorbit bits when it's at the end of its life. And we've seen in recent times quite a few Starlink satellites being deorbited when they've malfunctioned or haven't performed. And then cleaning up the bits of junk that are already there, which again require a multitude of techniques. From dealing with the large ones are different from dealing with the small ones. So this has to be something that, like with things on Earth, we have to think about how to stop the damage and the pollution, and then how to deal with stuff that's already there. And it requires effort, it requires money, and it requires a holistic approach from all people in space, not just reliant on, say, the Americans, for instance, to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Watch this space indeed. Well, next up, Pluto, the planet that's not a planet that could be a dwarf planet. It was a sad day when my high school books became obsolete, Brad. Why did Neil deGrasse Tyson and others make the call?
Neil's a heartless soul. No, it's one of those things where it's a very funny thing, because at the root of it, going into this discussion at the IAU assembly in Prague, as it occurred in 2006, meant that there was no clear definition of what a planet was. We had stars, we had galaxies, we even had definitions of what natural satellites, i.e. moons, were, but we didn't have a definition of a planet. And then we started to find planets around other stars. Well, that wasn't as big of a deal, because those are planets around other stars. But then we were finding more things in the solar system, things similar, things bigger, things different to Pluto. So what are they? They weren't asteroids, because they didn't seem like asteroids, again, which didn't have a great definition. But they didn't really fit as planets. We needed to create a definition, and it seemed silly, but we didn't have one of what a planet was. And in doing so, Pluto fell on the wrong side of the line.
Well, we're bringing this up today because it is 15 years since its demotion from the ranks of the solar system, or since it got moved to the kids' table at an adult's dinner party. Is it a victim of our constant need to understand the universe, do you think, Brad?
I think it's an interesting byproduct, because ultimately, if you ask any other astronomer, they actually don't care what you call it. It doesn't actually matter whether it's a planet or a dwarf planet. It doesn't change the interest of the object. It doesn't change why it's important. It doesn't change why we study it. It doesn't change any of those reasons. But it does mean that we have to understand how not just things like Pluto exist, but how they fit into the broader solar system. And that's where Pluto always ends up being a challenge. And it's a good challenge, I think, for myself. I think it's great that we're able to have these debates, because it means that we're pushing the boundary of what these things are, what do we know, what do they mean. But at the same time, it just goes to show that how much sympathize isn't the right word, but empathize almost with what we discover and make personal some of these things. If it was Uranus, the planet no one cares about, or Mercury, the kale of planets, people probably wouldn't have cared as much. But because there was this attachment that Pluto was discovered in human lifetimes, you can associate it. It felt more like a recent planet, even though it wasn't that recent. There was a lot of personality behind it almost. And it was the attachment people had that kind of led to why it's a controversy. If this was any other planet, no one would care. No one talks about the fact that Uranus and Neptune are ice giants, not gas giants. We reclassified them informally as well, because we started to discover other planets and realize when we look at other solar systems, there are gas giants and there are planets that are slightly different. They are more icy gas giants, i.e. Uranus and Neptune. No one debates about that they're out of the gas giant club, but because Pluto is a special thing we attach to, there is.
Absolutely. Well, look, to quote Linkin Park, in the end, does it really even matter?
And look, and this is, I think, a good point because it doesn't change the importance of Pluto. Pluto has had a dedicated mission, New Horizons. It will have more people studying it. It will still have people studying it. It doesn't change anything about its existence or why we care about it. It creates some fun. It creates some extra animosity towards Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's pretty much all it does. And again, it's not even him. I know everyone, we like to joke about it, but it was passed with over 90% resolution at the International Astronomical Union meeting. It was clear that everyone agreed that there needed to be a definition, and that's just where it fell. The way I make it out is we can either have you memorize 8 planets or you can memorize 18, because that's how many planets we'd have if we didn't have this definition.
Exactly right. Well, I would certainly love to get Neil onto the show to discuss this in greater detail. If you have any contact details, we'll talk after the show.
Yeah. He doesn't like to talk about this sore spot in his life.
Well, lastly this week, Brad, China's Mars rover Zurhong has completed its primary mission and been given clearance to explore a potential ancient ocean floor on the red planet.
Yeah, it's already, past its nominal lifetime of 90 sols, which is just slightly over 90 Earth days. I think it's like 92 Earth days or something like that. And that was the initial plan, or at least minimum time frame of how long it would work. No different than what the Mars rovers would work. The idea is that something goes wrong in the recharging, it's enough energy and battery to keep going for an entire cycle. Obviously, it's still working, which is quite exciting, and what you want out of your rovers. So now it's sitting into the next phases of its mission, as he said, exploring the rest of the area it landed, which is believed to be essentially an old ocean. And that's one of the keys here, exploring where there potentially was water and therefore potentially life.
Well, look, I can't believe it was 90 days ago it landed. Time certainly is fleeting, to quote another song, but the team have been working hard to meet the mission parameters, including visiting its landing platform, driving around 880 meters and analyzing different rocks and dunes nearby.
Yeah, it has been busy. As I said, it reached 6 months ago, Mars in February, and then, as you said, 3 months ago landed. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago to think that these rovers have been around for 6 months since the UAE's Hope and Perseverance and Tianwen-1, the whole satellite of China, reached Mars. And look, as you said, it's done a lot, and this was something to be, and they've only been the 3rd country to successfully land on Mars. Lots of countries have tried multiple times. The US has had failures. Russia's had multiple failures. It's not an easy thing to do. They did it right, and it's working. And so I think that's the exciting thing for them, is they're getting great science out of their facility.
Absolutely. Well, in orbit, as you mentioned, Tianwen-1 passes over daily to provide the vital communication link. Both spacecraft will be going into safe mode from mid-September while we get through solar conjunction, which is Mars sitting on the other side of the sun to us. It's going to be a nervous wait, I'm sure, but around November, it'll start its move towards a feature, and of course this is Zurhong the rover moving towards a feature described as a groove, about 3 times the distance away that it has travelled so far. It's definitely a stretch goal, and Tianwen-1 will switch from comm relay to explorer itself with a mapping survey to be completed. So there's plenty of stuff to still be done.
Yeah, look, that conjunction is always an important thing that people kind of fail to realize, is that when Mars goes on the other side of the solar system, the sun's essentially blocking it, so you cannot communicate with Mars. They fly blind, and this is no different than any other probe or rover. NASA Perseverance will have to deal with this. So will Ingenuity. So all the other probes around it. So it's always a little bit tricky because you have vital doubt. You're essentially not communicating with it. If something goes wrong, you can't diagnose it, and it's weeks to solve the problem. So it's definitely something that they need to keep an eye on, and they obviously want to get through. But then, once it seemingly will come out of that conjunction and they are able to start seeing it again, as they said, they want to travel, 2.5 kilometers almost, and they've only traveled just shy of 900. So they're definitely a big goal to do it. And look, they will do it. They'll try it. And that's the exciting thing with so much happening on Mars. You're not just reliant on one mission happening every 10 years. It's such a busy place, so much science that's working together. So it's a cool thing to see.
Absolutely. Well, when we continue talking science, Brad, Dr. Christian Schwab will be beaming in to discuss a new spectrometer that he helped to develop. It's been built at the Kitt Peak National Observatory in the States, and it'll help us see even smaller exoplanets. Christian, let's talk spectrometers. And as I understand it, precision is key when it comes to scanning for exoplanets in particular.
Yes, it is. The name of the game is getting the highest precision spectrograph right now to really find Earth-like exoplanets. So unlike other fields of astronomy, in exoplanets, we really search for the one really interesting one. Right, in galaxies, we are at the point where we have thousands of them and people do statistics with them. But in exoplanets, we're really looking for that one elusive Earth 2.0 that is really like our own home planet, and getting to measure that one requires extreme precision from the instruments we build.
Well, it's certainly a very fascinating chat, extending on what we talk about with Brad here on Talkin' Science. Members have first play access to that interview right now. Sign up with the join button below this video on YouTube, or go to the trek.zone/support to get access for less than a cup of coffee a month. Brad, it's great to pick apart the stories of the week with you. We'll do it again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks.